Hi, my name is Jessica, and this is my experience with depression, anxiety, addiction, suicidal ideation, and bipolar disorder. This all began when I first noticed it when I was about 12 years old. I grew up in a really poor family. We didn't have health insurance. My parents were constantly at odds. Um, Grew up in a very loud and angry household, and they were constantly splitting up. And when I was 12, I had my first suicide attempt. I wasn't exactly sure what was happening inside of me. There was a lot of anger, a lot of resentment. I really hated myself, and I wasn't exactly sure why. I wasn't equipped with how to express that, except through harming myself. And because of our financial situation growing up, I didn't have health insurance, and so I wasn't put into therapy. I wasn't put into treatment. I was given a sample pack of medications and got to see one therapist through a church. And I still had this really deep, burning anger inside of me. I didn't know what was happening. I had this rage that I could not contain. I was constantly acting out. I was constantly getting into fights. I was constantly challenging teachers and getting into a lot of trouble at school because I was so mad. I was mad at myself. I was mad at the world. They didn't understand what was happening to me, and neither did I. When I was 16 years old, my parents were separated. And at this time, I had already graduated high school and I was working full time. I came home from work and all the lights in the house were off, which was pretty odd since there were 4 other teenagers living in the house at the time. So there was always somebody there. There was always somebody watching TV or practicing music or playing music, doing something. But the lights were off. I did notice my mom's purse on the counter, which again was odd because nobody else was there. So I ran upstairs to let her know I was home and tell her what a great day I had had. And my mother was there, and she had attempted to take her life. It was a really confusing time. I remember dialing 911, and my brother had just come home right after that. We got her into the ambulance. We got to the emergency room, and it was kind of a blur. And I remember my father showing up, and again, they were separated at that time, so I was really upset, still very angry. But I remember my brother making me give my father a hug, and sometime before dawn, my father took his life. My life really changed after that. I had, already experienced a couple brushes with suicidal ideation, with self-harm, but everything changed when my father took his life. It was really difficult for my whole family. I'm really lucky that my mom kept us all together, still to this day, actually. She's a godsend. But it was a really rough road. And because of that, I was so confused. And I started drinking because I didn't know what else to do. And everybody gave me a pass for it too. It was okay that I was always drunk because I had gone through that already. So people looked the other way when I was drinking too much. People looked the other way when I was drinking and driving. And with that came the drugs too. I was taking any and every pill I could get my hands on. Whatever anybody offered me, I took it. And it was because I didn't know how to deal with what was happening. By the time I had turned 18, I was finally able to get health insurance. And because I didn't want to feel like this anymore, which was extremely apparent because I was stifling my feelings and trying to combat what was going on inside of me with drugs and alcohol, I wanted to change. I didn't want to feel this anymore. It's awful feeling waking up hopeless every morning. It's awful feeling that you have to have a drink to get through the day, or you're not going to be able to carry on a conversation with somebody else if you're not under the influence of something, because they might see that you're actually hurting inside. I started to finally reach out to doctors, trying to find a good fit, trying to find a therapist that was a good fit, trying to find the medications that were a good fit. But I was still drinking very heavily, so none of those things worked for me. Every single one was a dead end because I was still using. I knew something had to change. I knew that I was meant for more than this. I didn't want to become a statistic. With everything that has happened in my life up until then, until I quit drinking, again, I had every reason to. I have had every reason to numb the pain, but I don't want to anymore. I wanted to live a life that I could be proud of, and I wanted to live a life that others could be proud of too. And so I called up my friend and I asked her to take me to the only place that I knew where people stopped drinking, which is AA. I saw it on TV. A couple, their TV shows make fun of it all the time. But I walked into AA, and it wasn't my cup of tea, not gonna lie. It was a little hard to admit that I was an alcoholic at such a young age, that it had gotten that bad so fast. And when I quit drinking, things really, as cliche as it sounds, really started to improve. My therapy started to make sense. My medication started to work. I was able to function properly. I wasn't on the verge of losing my job. I did experience my last suicide attempt after I had quit drinking. And I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which, was numbed out my entire adolescence with drugs and alcohol. So when I started to actually feel things again, and so I was bouncing all over the place. I was feeling all of these new things, that everything was up on the surface, everything was really raw, and I didn't know what else to do except get help. I immediately went to the emergency room and I was admitted. And while I was there, it was springtime and I was in Utah. And we had an art therapy session, and this really changed my outlook on myself and what I could do. We were encouraged to envision our favorite season, and this was at the end of winter in Utah, so there was still snow on the ground in some places. The trees were just barely getting their buds again. And that's all I could picture, is that I was a tree, and that although I'm going to keep going through all of these difficult times in my life, I can be reborn again. I don't have to let this kill me off. I don't have to let this, cause me to die. That I can be reborn each new season. And that every year, no matter what, every spring, I can do it again. No matter how hard it gets. And that has always stuck with me. What really, really helped me in my journey into where I'm at now is to understand what it is and understand what I was going through, because my entire life didn't have the words that matched my feelings, and trying to understand, and labels good or bad, but I had words to match these feelings finally, and to finally understand what I was going through, and then learn that other people were going through these same things too, and other people were able to live normal and productive lives. They didn't have to drink every day to survive. They didn't have to self-medicate with whatever drugs they can find. They could be happy. And so after I was released from my last suicide attempt from the hospital, I was encouraged to start volunteering, start giving back, as a way to possibly help in my recovery. I was reluctant at first, but again, I wanted to learn more about what was happening inside of me. And so I was connected with a nonprofit organization called NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I took one of their peer-taught courses, so somebody who understood everything that I had gone through was telling me and teaching me about what I was going through. That it really transformed my life. I felt for the first time that I knew what was happening and how I could overcome it for the first time. And I cannot tell you the joy and the relief of just knowing that. It really made a big difference. I volunteered for another organization, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Their mission is to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. And that was my mission. The moment I found this organization, I found what I was meant to do with my life. So I began volunteering with them and haven't looked back. Being able to give back to other people who've been able, or who've gone through the experiences I have, who know what those really dark moments are, where you don't feel like you have anywhere else to go, you have nothing else to live for. Not everybody understands that feeling. And it wasn't until I started volunteering for suicide prevention specifically did I learn that. And I feel very fortunate that I've made it this far and that I get to use my voice to maybe help somebody else who's been in my shoes. Growing up and having gone through all of these experiences and struggling with my mental illness all these years, I didn't see hope at the end of that tunnel. Everything in my life was very dark, and I never imagined that I could be where I'm at today. I didn't know that you could wake up happy every day. I didn't know that there was joy out there that wasn't at the bottom of a bottle. I didn't know that I could be a functioning and participating member of society and make a positive impact on my community. I didn't know that I could help get 988 passed and implemented nationwide so all of us have a quicker way to get help. So please just reach out. It does get better. You can and will make a difference because you matter. So please stay. Please reach out. Utilize 988 anytime you or somebody you love might be experiencing a mental health crisis. Please stay.